Okay, welcome. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our second webinar in our series. We're Elizabeth Woodville Primary School. We're an Edtech Demonstrator School, and it's great to have so many of you with us this afternoon. Hopefully looking forward to that imminent half term ahead, not long to go now. This afternoon, we're going to be talking about keeping pupils engaged. We're looking at interactive quizzes, Google Forms, and with me, I've got Sarah Crowhurst, our Edtech project lead. Okay, Sarah?
Hi.
James Crowhurst, my EdTech lead practitioner here at Elizabeth Woodville.
Hi, everyone.
And of course, remember, they're on the same screen. They've been through 3 lockdowns, still going strong. So yes, they're, as a married couple, they are in their own house. So yes, they have just squeezed onto one screen for us. So, yeah, working well. But we have a very special guest. I want to introduce Amy Pickard. Hi, Amy.
Hello, everyone.
Amy's a Year 4 teacher at Kirby Muxloe Primary School, one of our partner schools. And Amy's been doing some quite incredible things with forms, really creative, working right across the curriculum. And we're absolutely delighted to be able to share that with you. Real practical, real life examples from someone on the front line of remote learning. I'm sure that's how it feels, Amy.
Definitely. Thrown into virtual learning overnight last March, just like everyone else.
So we can all share that feeling. What we would say is let us know if there's any issues with audio or video. Hopefully technology will play ball with us this afternoon. We'd also like to take your questions in the chat. So there will be a Q&A at the end, and we will try and answer questions as we go along as well. So to ask a question, just pop it in the chat, pop it in there, and we will do our very best to make this as interactive as possible for you. So I think what we want to do really is give you a little bit of context starting out, because Amy, this is something that was very new to you not so long ago, wasn't it?
Totally new, yes. Started as a total novice at this whole virtual learning. I was the one laughing when children told me that YouTuber was a job, you know. So straight in there. And Google Forms I've found to be such an effective way of engaging learners, but the settings is absolutely key. So hopefully after today, once people can master those settings, it really will set you free with a great strategy for engaging learners, hopefully.
So it's all about getting that right first, isn't it? If you've got that right from the outset, true of any software or program when you're embarking on it for the first time. But then once you've got that, you're free to be creative. So I think we're on that point now where we're going to ask Sarah and James to delve into the settings and show us how to get things right from the very beginning. So we'll hand over to you, Sarah and James.
Thank you, Andrew. Right, we'll just make sure the technology is playing ball, which I think it is. Fingers crossed it works. Fantastic. Okay, we're okay. Oh. Right, so making a Google form quiz. Let's have a look at the nuts and bolts, how to get it done. So there's 2 ways. If you're using Google Classroom, really speaks for itself. You can do it direct in Google Classroom, or you go to forms.google.com if you're using a different LMS, because you can still do it, just do it in a very slightly different way. It's the settings, as we've said before, that are important and the things to get right so this is successful for you. So first of all, in Google Classroom, if you've got Google Classroom, it's kind of built in. So you go to that create button and you go down to quiz assignment instead of normal assignment. You can then do all the things you normally do to set your assignment, give it a title, give it instructions. I'm missing the bit down the side, but the bit down the side where you can assign it to different students and assign it as normal. But keep that blue little toggle toggled across at the bottom, because these are your settings, and this is going to make this so much easier for you. If you keep those toggled on, that imports all the grades and shuts down the responses and gets all your users in. So that's your setting to keep toggled on. And then you just go into that little purple blank quiz to start building up the quiz itself. Or you go to forms.google.com. So if you're outside of Google Classroom and you're using a different LMS, then forms.google.com is the place to go. And we're going to, fingers crossed, jump live into Google Forms now, and we're going to start building one up so we can take a little look together. Now, this will be a little bit of a whistle-stop tour of Google Forms rather than anything really, really in-depth, but we'll go through as much as we can in the time that we've got. So we're going to jump to Google Forms, and it is going to work. Fantastic. I don't think it's come up.
Okay, I think it's come through to you now. So we are now on forms.google.com, and what we're going to do is we're going to show you briefly how you create a Google form. And
this is the same if you're in Google Classroom, by the way. The building up of it is the same. Yeah,
it all works in exactly the same way. So when you press the blank quiz button on Google Classroom, it will take you through to the screen we're about to go to. And if you're on forms.google.com, all you do is you press this blank quiz button here to start building your quiz. So those two buttons basically take you through to exactly the same screen. So now we are on the screen where we can create our quiz. And what we are going to do is we're just going to very briefly go over how you create everything. So you can give your quiz a title at the top up here. We suggest you always name it in a similar way to what's named on your activity or assignment for your LMS or in Google Classroom.
Pop a date on.
Yeah, pop the date on there as well. Really helpful. So if we just quickly put that on in there, and let's say we're going to do a maths quiz. So we will just put maths quiz in there. Now, the other important bit is right at the top left, where it says blank quiz. That's the name that your quiz is given in your Google Drive. So it's important that you go into there and also name it in there, because you're going to want to be able to get back to it later on. A, to be able to see the responses, but B, because you might want to reuse some of the questions in the quiz as well. And I'll talk to you about how you can do that in a minute. So as we've mentioned earlier, the settings are really important. So now we have named our quiz, we're just going to double check those settings. And we're going to double check them by going on to the cog at the top right up here. And if you are using Google Classroom, you do not need to do this. You don't need to do anything. The settings are set for you. If you're using something different to Google Classroom and you're using Google Forms with a different LMS, whether that's Seesaw, Tapestry, Teams, Dojo, anything like that, or any other ones, or even just want to put it on your website, it's absolutely fine. You can do all of that. The important bit you need to do is untick this button here where it says restrict to users in your organization. If we just untick that, that means now that everyone will be able to access this quiz. If you want to double check that it's a quiz as well in quiz mode, just press on quizzes at the top right and check that make this is a quiz is ticked. It should do it automatically, but if you wanted to check that, you can. Important thing then is to save it. So now you've done the settings, you can press on the little palette at the top right up here, and that allows you to change the color and the layout if you wanted to. We won't look too in depth in that because that's something you can have a play with. And then let's have a look at how we actually create a question. So the first question is put on there for you automatically. But what you can do is when you press on untitled question, it gives you the option then to be able to write in the question. So I'm just going to put in a little simple maths question, and oops, let's put it in there like that. So we're just keeping it with the times tables. On the right hand side, you get different options for your quizzes. Now we've talked about the fact that we want these quizzes to save us time. We want to be able to use them to get the most out of them. So we can make them self-marking quizzes. So on here, on the right-hand side, we can choose some different options. We've got multiple choice, which is the one we're going to look at in a minute. That allows the children to select one option from a choice of answers. We've got check boxes, which allows the children to select multiple answers from a list of options. The other ones down here, you don't need to worry about for doing a self-marking quiz. And then at the top, we've got short answer, which means the children have to type in their own answer. And we've got a paragraph as well, which means the children have to type in their own answer, but paragraphs are not self-marked. You will have to mark paragraphs. So if you want to keep that workload down and make it easy for yourself, short answer, multiple choice, or check boxes are the 3 to look at. So we're going to keep this as multiple choice. I'm just going to pop some answers into here, and we'll just pop a couple in just for the sake of the webinar, just so you can see how they go. And now we've put in the answers. What we are going to do is we are going to set the correct answer. So to set the correct answer, we go to the answer key at the bottom down here. And when you press on answer key, what that does is it says, right, now you need to tell me which one's the correct answer. So we're going to tell Google which one's the correct answer. So I'm going to click on the 30 to make that the correct answer. And you can see it's gone green, which means that it's now marked as the correct answer. I can choose my points at the top right. So I'm going to make that 1 point for this one. And you can give some answer feedback based on the question as well. So you can like send the children off to a different website, or let them get a YouTube video, things like that based on their answers. Again, have a look at that. Feel free to go and have a look at that if you have a play. We haven't got time to go into it at the moment for the webinar, but it is something that feel free to go and play with. Then we press done. And now we have got our question, we've got our answer, and you can see we've got the green tick next to our answer, which tells us that this answer is the correct one. The important bit down here, required. Mark your question as required. If you don't mark the question as required, the children will be able to skip it. So you must tick that box to make it required, because you don't want children skipping the questions. One of the other things just worth noting on here, these 6 dots on the left hand side next to the questions answers, sorry, allow you to drag them around. You may notice we've got 30 at the top, which is the right answer. I'm the devil for putting the right answer at the top every time and leaving it there. And actually, children get very clever and very wise to that, and they just go along clicking the top one every time. And obviously, that's not then testing anything on them. So if you're doing multiple choice, if you put your first question, if you put the first answer right, just mix them up a little bit. So it's always wise to mix them up. So that's our first question. But on the right hand side, we've got our bar for further options. So the circle with the plus at the top allows us to add a further question, which we shall do now. So we just click on it, and then we can put in another question. So if we were to do a quick short answer question for you, just so you can see how that will look. And you can see, because we're writing in text, Google has automatically changed it to short answer for us. Sometimes it doesn't, but in this instance it has. So there we go. We've just put in our question. And you can see it's selected short answer. If it hadn't, we can just click on it and select short answer from the list. Now, a short answer means the children have to write in the answer. We can still make it self-marked using the answer key like before, but this time, rather than selecting the right answer, all we are going to do is type in the answers. Now, it is worth noting that the answers are case sensitive. So if you're doing a quiz that is based on a literacy topic or something like that, if the children have got to get the capital letters in the right place as well, and the punctuation in the correct place. So that's really important, that if it's not important to you how they answer it, say it was all answered in capitals, that you put all those options in there for them. So just make sure you put all the correct answer options in, and then mark all of the answers as incorrect. That'll make it self-marked, and don't forget to give it points on the right hand side. Again, you can do answer feedback like mentioned before. I'm just going to press done on that one. Not forgetting at the bottom, we make it required. So short answer, multiple choice. Showed you how to do those two. But as you get more into this later on, there is the option to import questions as well. So this little square of the arrow allows you to import questions. When you click on that, it just pops up with the different quizzes that you've created in your Google Drive. And then
hence why important to name them so you can go back to them.
Yeah, exactly. Hence that naming is really important. And then you can just select the option and put it in. One of the other things that's really important in here, especially if you're not doing it in Google Classroom. If you're using Google Classroom, you don't actually need to worry about this because it's done automatically for you. But if you're not doing it in Google Classroom, put in a little short answer question at the top, asking the children what their name is. Oops, not very good at spelling today. So just make sure that you've got a question in there that asks the children what their name is. Right at the top, and you can see we can drag that with those 6 dots at the top there. We can drag it up and down. There's not going to be an answer key or points for this one because obviously there's lots of different options, and you do need to make it required again. That's just so that you know which child has answered the questions in your quiz. You obviously want to make sure you've got all the children's names in there. So that's adding the questions in and how you can import questions. Couple of other options down here which we've found to be really useful, and Amy's used a lot in her quizzes. The add image button. So that add image button will allow you to add in an image that can be uploaded from your computer or from Google Drive. So you can just browse on your computer. So that means you could use the screen snipping tool to screen snip from a PDF or from a website or anything you've got, say comprehension. You could screen snip some writing from your comprehension, browse and upload it in. Or you can just browse Google Images and bring in some images from Google Images if you wanted to. So if we were just to look for a triangle, for example, to put in, we can bring in a triangle and insert that into our quiz, and it puts it in by itself as its own little section. And then you can manipulate that using these 3 dots to center align it, or by clicking on it and resizing it as well. And that's not a question, that's just there for reference. So it's for the children to look at. And again, you can do the same thing by using YouTube videos. So we've got the add image, which we've just done. Below that is the YouTube video option. So by clicking on that, it allows you to add in a YouTube video. So you can search directly in YouTube to put a YouTube video in, or if you're recording your own videos and put them on YouTube but making them unlisted, copy the URL from the unlisted YouTube video, go to the URL link at the top and paste it in there, and it will come in ready for the children to be able to see in your Google quiz. So that's how you can enhance it and add further things in there. Obviously, we've whizzed over it very quickly. But obviously we're conscious that we want to give you a good range of everything that's in here. So the last thing that you would need to be able to do is to be able to give it to the children. If you're in Google Classroom, at this point, you don't need to do anything. You just come out of your quiz, it will take you back to your Google Classroom, and you would assign it in the normal way. If you're using a different LMS, as mentioned before, like Seesaw or Tapestry or Dojo, Teams, whatever, then just use the send button at the top and make sure you select the link option in there. It gives you a link. Now, I know that link looks absolutely horrible, but we have got the shorten URL button down here. So when we press that, it shortens it down, much more manageable. We can just copy that and then paste it into whatever platform you're using. You can even put it on your website. It's really easy. Or send it out via your parental communication systems. That's all you need to do. Just send them that link. They click on that link and they will be able to see it. So I'm now going to flip back to our presentation, and hopefully we'll be able to hand back to Andrew. So just bear with me a second.
Oh, look at that, as if by magic. Thank you very much, James and Sarah. That's just hopefully showing you how to get things set up. And in a moment, we're going to talk more about the creativity and how you can use all of those tools and really have some brilliant creative cross-curricular work. One of the things to think about is it is it is there for a purpose. And I know all of you are working incredibly hard at the moment. And if you're anything like our school, we're always looking for ways of decreasing workload. And so using self-marking forms is always a really good way of doing that. It gives pupils ownership. It's very accessible, it's engaging, and it doesn't have to always be a closed process. As you're going to see with a range of forms that we'll share with you, if you think creatively, you can still be very challenging in the way that you want pupils to work and how you can perhaps develop comprehension retrieval practice, for example. So there's lots of things that you can do with them. But the fact that you're using images, using video clips, it's all enticing, it's all engaging for pupils. So we're going to move through now onto the engagement, and the fact that it's just so fun, it's so interactive. That's what we wanted to really bring across through our training today. It is that instant feedback that you can get. So you've got a high accessibility factor. Pupils are getting instant feedback on what they're doing. The teacher also will show you later how you get like a bit of a results analysis. It will bring all of that together in a spreadsheet, which is incredibly useful. And once you've got those settings done in the way that we've just shown you, actually you've got that artistic license to be creative. And I think when you see what Amy's done with it, and actually the learning curve, it's pretty quick. As soon as you start playing with it and you're used to doing a lot of that, suddenly you come up with some quite brilliant things. And once you've got one form ready, it's not too difficult to develop that further for other areas of the curriculum. So yeah, the message from us is just make it your own, go out there, have a play, and see how you get on. So we're going to move through now, because what we want to do is show you examples, real life examples of how these have been used in Amy's classroom. So if we move on to the next slide, and where we want to really showcase this, and I think I'll bring Amy back in at this point, Amy, because this really does show, we've looked at the settings, haven't we? But actually quickly you can come up with so many brilliant ideas for how to develop them across the curriculum.
Totally. Once you know those settings, you can really think about the lessons that you want to deliver in a week and which ones are suitable for a Google form. Not all of them obviously will be, but even if several are, it can really save on workload, but also give children that instant feedback, which is very satisfying for everyone.
So I think Amy's now going to take us on a bit of a tour, and I think Sarah, you're going to be there as well, because actually this was a process that started. Let's start from the beginning, Sarah. And actually, it was just a bit of training and talking about the power of forms, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we just started with a bit of a chat, really, and talked about what we could achieve. We spent some time with Amy, quite limited. She took the creativity on herself. We taught her the settings and how to create a form, but really all of this work that you're going to see now is totally her creativity, so we'll have a look through it. Okay. Amy, do you want to talk us through this one?
Okay, so the first form I created, I took the weekly arithmetic for maths, because it's a format I thought it has answers to go with it. It has the questions ready to go. This will help me to master Google Forms a bit more. So as you can see, I've imported the image, which is some screenshots from an arithmetic paper, which I would have used in class anyway as part of the questions. The key thing is that the children are working out the answers to these on paper before they enter them into the form, as we don't want the math skill to be lost here. With the arithmetic test form, I use the short answer question option. And I know James spoke about this earlier. When you're entering the answer with the different options, for example, when it's numbers that are 4 digits or bigger, do remember that children might answer with the comma, 1, 1, 2, 3, or they might put the number without the comma. So it's just that little tweak that means that both of those answers are right. Also, when fractions are in arithmetic questions, please help the children to understand that it's the slash keys. That's not as readily known as I thought it was. So that's something I learned there. Mm-hmm. With these arithmetic tests, the children get instant feedback at the end. So they know what score they've got. They know how they did. And I know that was covered in settings about making the name the verb.
Oh no.
Oh,
that allows me as the teacher to know how they...
Right, carry on, Amy. I think we lost you briefly there.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm back. Am I back?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, carry on.
Fractions.
You just done the fraction.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Oh, okay, sorry. So after that, the children do get an instant score back at the end, which is so satisfying for them. And if you make the name the first question on the form, you can also go in and see how they've got on. So it really is so effective and engaging.
So Amy, what you did here really is just screen grab things you already had, right? Because you could use SATs papers and things like that too, couldn't you?
Totally, you know, it was about making sure what would I normally do to plan a week's worth of learning and what can I put into Google Forms, because when you put the work in at the beginning, it saves you that time at the end with the marking aspect. So you feel like you're putting the work in and it's going to save you some time at the end.
That's it. And we really recommend using what you've already got. I mean, really don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. So you use screenshots for this first one, but then when we go on to the next one, you started building in longer video clips.
Yes, so once I realised we were doing the Romans as a topic through virtual learning, I found some clips on YouTube which covered areas of this topic, and then used the video to create my own comprehension style questions. I just watched the video with a piece of paper, very old fashioned, and wrote down some ideas that they would be able to recall from the videos and made those my quiz questions. I use multiple choice questions for these ones, but it's really important to experiment with the different question styles. Like you don't have to do tick one option. You can do tick several options which apply, which definitely deepens the thinking of those children who are not then thinking, oh, it's only got to be one.
And when we speak to schools, I know they're quite worried about reading in general, and reading is going to be a bit of a gap that we're going to have to plug. So when you've looked at we look at your next one, it doesn't mean that multiple choice isn't reading.
No, this was something I was really worried about. I didn't want to take away the learning aspect. It wasn't just about making my life easier. I wanted to make sure the children did get something out of it as well. So yes, with these multiple choice questions that I created, I took some screenshots from the video and then put them into a keynote with some meanings all jumbled up. And obviously one of them, they're all in the right place. And then gave them the three options, which, as you can see from the screen, they've actually got to read all the options to find out which one reflects the truth from the video.
And I know you've been plugging gaps in everything, bless you, but in grammar as well. And we can see from the next one, just screenshots again, using things that you've already got, but to practice grammar.
Totally. Again, I was thinking, what would I normally do, and try to work with that, as I know there's so much new stuff coming out all the time. It's trying to find something you're familiar with. So using my usual searching for resources on many platforms, I did this punctuation quiz, which was basically the keynote slides, the PowerPoint slides from an adding inverted commas to a sentence quiz. And I then put numbers 1 to 4 on the slide to give the questions that multiple choice aspect. And then once they've got to read each of the 4 options and decide which one's punctuated correctly, and then they're just clicking in the answer there underneath, which, you know, was a quick way to create a punctuation quiz.
And moving on from practicing the grammar, this next slide shows you that you've moved to sort of more formal tests, so you can use forms to be a little bit more formal in your assessment as well.
Totally. So when I was thinking about past, present and future tenses, which is something that, you know, really needed work, I did do the beginning questions of pick one option, which is the correct version, past tense of this word, or that kind of thing. But then on the screen with the kind of reddy orange frame around it, I did a tick all words that apply. And I really feel that this shows the children who have a deeper understanding of the subject matter, because they've really got to search through that list. And it was a case of tick all the past tense verbs in the list. And that for me highlighted the children who do have that deeper understanding of this area, and those, of course, who don't.
And this week, I know you've been playing more and more with Google Forms. So talk us through this one. You've mixed in all different sorts of questions on this form.
Yes, I think once I've been set free on these, I've gone a little bit crazy. And let's face it, lockdown doesn't give us, multiple options of how to spend our time. So I feel I've got a little hooked here. But yes, this quiz this week, I felt, right, I want to combine different types of questions now as much as I can in one quiz. So we were looking at the plural spelling rules, which, I'm sure many teachers out there will understand constantly need work and reminders. I put the little poster as the image at the top of the quiz because, again, that gives the children something to refer to in terms of how to help them to find the answers to the questions. So I started off with the questions which were just, which option is the plural version of a word, and they had to tick it. Then I did a short answer question. So type the word tomato as a plural, and they had to then type it, remembering that I put it as with a capital at the start, without a capital at the start, just so that it's focusing on the spelling rather than that. And then I decided to take the spelling rules from the poster, put them into a keynote slide and number them 1 to 9. And then put a word in as the question and say, well, which spelling rule applies to this word? And then the children had to look at rules 1 to 9 and select which spelling rule a certain word followed. So I felt that was, again, really showing a range of different ways that they understand this topic rather than just the basic one.
And what have your class thought about these? What's the feedback been like?
Well, the engagement for these forms across Year 4 is a lot higher than some of the work that we get via our online platform in other ways. So we get, at least kind of 58, 59. Sometimes we get over 70 odd because children can have another go at the quiz. And what is amazing is that children don't like revisiting their work, let's be honest. But with these, it's a bit addictive for them. So you get them saying, I didn't do very well the first time round, so I've had another few goes and my score's higher now. And it actually is, music to my ears when I hear that they've actually willingly gone back to have another go, revisit learning, which is what we want them to do. So I would say engagement for these is really high. And also the aspect for me is it saves a lot of time. You get to know quickly how the children have done with an area of learning. So,
Amy, you started this journey just a few weeks ago with just a tiny bit of help from us. What would your top tips be to people that were starting out with Google Forms and quizzes?
So I think the key thing is to really play with them, maybe try some for your family, etc. first, just find out how it looks at both ends. And lockdown quizzes are popular, so go for it. But the key tips with the ones for learning, I would say, make sure you remember to put name as question number 1. That's absolutely vital. Make sure, as I know James has said, slide the required to each question, because children will always skip questions if that's an option, as would adults, of course. And then in the settings slide, just make sure it's accessible to all the children, as they're going to be accessing it in different ways. So we use Seesaw. I know there's many other virtual online platforms out there, and we just post the link, which James showed about, shorten the link into a Seesaw, and they can go straight onto the quiz from there and access it through just clicking on the link. There's not an email required. It's not complicated, which I think is really important whilst they're at home trying to grasp it really. And the key thing is Google Forms is not just for Google, it's for all platforms, and it's a great way to engage learners, and it's providing one strategy in a variety of things that caters for different learning styles, which is so important.
Amy, thank you so much. I'm just going to pass back to Andrew just for a little while.
I mean, that was brilliant. Thank you, Amy. Just gave us a real sort of advanced look really at your repertoire, and you've built that up over a relatively short period of time as well. I think it's worth picking up on some of the points, because sometimes we think about forms being that closed process, but that tick all function where you've got that long list, it really does raise a level of challenge and get children thinking a bit more widely about things, doesn't it?
Definitely.
So where we're at now is we're just... Sorry, Amy, you carry on.
Sorry, I was just agreeing with you. Definitely, the tickle has been a great discovery.
So we'd urge you to look at that and think outside the box, but arrange your creativity there and in making the sheets possible. So just thinking about how to do that. Now, where we're getting to now is we've got all this amazing information. And one of those magic moments with forms is the way that you can transfer results automatically to Google Sheets. And we've been using them as schools now in a wide range of ways. And it's always brilliant when you see that actually that spreadsheet is populated as if by magic as soon as you get those results. It never gets old. So, you know, there's a range of functions for this, from collecting permissions at the start of a school year to getting the results on a spellings test, as you've seen there. So what James and Sarah are going to do now is they're going to take you through some of the ways to work and how to get those results to maximise, you know, what you get back for the minimum of effort as well. It's just a great process, James.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the really good things about Google Forms is it presents the results to you in multiple ways. So when you go back into your Google Forms, all you have to do is click on the responses tab at the top. So whether you have created it in forms.google.com, and then you can just click on your quiz and then you click on the responses tab at the top, or if you've created it in Google Classroom, you go into the assignment, and then all you need to do is actually just click on the name of the quiz. The children don't get the little boxes on there in Google Classroom. You just click on the name of the quiz and it takes you through. One thing about Google Classroom though is it takes you through in the view mode. And this has caught a few teachers out, but all you have to do is just make sure you press that pencil at the bottom right hand corner, which is the edit pencil. Because you've already got editing rights, it then takes you through to the screen where you've got the questions that you've set, and you're then able to press that tab at the top with the responses. So if you see on our slide now, that little arrow that's pointing to the responses, that's the tab that you need to click on. When you've got your responses in there, you'll get that little black circle with the number of responses you've had to that quiz in there. And when you press on that responses tab, it gives you different ways that you can analyze the results. So one of the first things it does is it gives you a summary of all of the answers for really quick analysis. It gives you instant charts and graphs in there. Some of them aren't graphable or chartable, so it just gives you a list of the words that are put in there. But these charts and graphs can also be copied, so you can copy them out and put them into like PowerPoint or a Word document if you need to, or wherever you want to use them. But then there's also some other tabs along the top, so you can actually break it down by question, so you can look at different questions, or if you want to, you can click on the individual tab and it will take you to be able to see the individual results. So it will show you the form for each individual child. You'll be able to see their name at the top, you'll be able to see their answer for every single question, which is brilliant. And you can see all the results that way. But the other thing, like Andrew's just mentioned, is that at the top right hand corner of that responses section is a little icon with the little green square with the white cross in it that allows you to open it into Google Sheets. So when you press on that icon, it says, do you want to create a new Google Sheet if it's the first time that you've done it for this particular form? and then it will open it up. It will put the timestamp of when the child actually did the quiz. It will put their name in it. If you've chosen their name, it will give you the score down the side. If you're in Google Classroom, it will put their email address in as well. And then it gives you a list of all the questions and their answer for each individual question on it.
And it names it for you. So as soon as you press that little green square with the white cross, it matches the name of the sheet to the name of your form.
And so it makes it much easier for you to find. It puts it in the same place in your Google Drive as the Google form as well. So you can get back and get quick access to it in Google Sheets. If you're not familiar with Google Sheets and you prefer to put it into Excel or something like that, then that's absolutely fine. You can just press File, Download, and select Microsoft Excel, and it will download all the results in, and then you can open it into Excel and work on it in Excel as well. So there's a range of ways that you can get these results back, and it's really, really useful being able to get that instant quick analysis from the summary, and being able to see each individual child's form responses, but then also this Google Sheet, it keeps the data there forever. You've got that data saved from that quiz forever, and it's always a way of getting some sort of assessment out of the children, even if it's just for fun. So you've always got that data there forever. Another little feature, if you're using Google Classroom, in the assignments section, in the marking section on that assignment, there's a little button at the top right that says import grades. If you press that, it brings this children's score from the quiz into Google Classroom, sets it next to all the children, and then you can tick the box at the top to select all the children and press the return button, and you can return the quiz back to them through Google Classroom. So it's all fully integrated into Google Classroom, which is brilliant if you're using Google Classroom. But as Amy said, she's using it with Seesaw. We've helped schools who have been using it with Dojo and Tapestry and other platforms as well, or even schools that have just decided to put them on to their website for access as well. And again, they can get hold of all of those results that way. So it's really useful. So that brings us through to the questions and answers. So
yeah, and it's time. So if you have, I know we have a question from earlier, which we'll pick up in a moment, but if you want to ask us anything else, we've brought Amy back as well, our resident forms expert. We'll try and answer as many as possible. It's worth noting as well, I mean, we're probably used to using forms for things like parent questionnaires or consultations. It's a great way of just getting that feedback, and the fact that it all comes through, it saves you collating. So we were talking about permission slips, something as simple as that. You know, gone are the days where you could lose that permission slip if you've got a busy morning. You know, it's coming straight through. So yeah, take those opportunities. So James, I think we've got a few questions coming through. So do you want to, should we start?
Yeah.
A few more as we go.
Yeah, so I'll pick up on one that was posted on earlier actually by Nicola, asking about the online images and saying that they seem to be restricted. So the way Google works, Google Images is actually set so that images are categorized by copyright in the Google image search. And actually the main Google image search gives you access to all those images, but some of them are actually copyrighted or not available for reuse. But what the search does in Google Forms and in Google Docs and Google Slides and Google Sheets is it only shows you the images that are available for reuse. So that's why the images may seem slightly restricted. Now, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but in Google Images, you could obviously just go and save the image and then you could upload it from your computer anyway. But obviously thinking around the copyright side of things, you know, you're trying to use those images that just come up in that Google image search is the best option. If someone's created that image, put it on there, it's their work. So that's why the images might seem slightly restricted. I hope that answers the question for you there, Nicola.
And then we've got another question from Jill, which is about printing the quiz off unanswered. That is a really good point, because we often talk about remote learning and it is paper and pencil as well, isn't it? You know, it's a really effective approach. So is there a good way of doing this?
The best option that I've come across so far is actually just being you can press on, there's a little eye at the top right hand corner. So where you've got the cog at the top and the send button at the top, there's a little eye up there. If you press on that, it gives you a preview of the quiz. And then you can just go to the normal print and print it in the normal way. And that'll print it off for you. Obviously, if you've got videos in the quiz, it does lose that interactivity side of it there. And obviously, the answers aren't going to be back into Google Forms either. So trying to look at your answers and look at those responses and put everything together is going to be slightly different and slightly more problematic. You probably have to either, once you've got it back, actually go and type it in for them and put it onto the Google form for them, or you might have to go and just add it to the sheet yourself as well and do it that way. There is also a really good feature of Google Forms which allows you to be able to add on extra facilities to Google Forms. So Google Form, the joy of Google is there are all of these add-ons that you can bring in. So we've worked with one school in particular who were very keen on having an add-on for time limiting their quizzes. So they were able to do a time limited quiz on there, and we found an add-on which they did and used with that. So there might be an add-on which allows us to add it on that way to do a printout in there instead. We were just talking to a school earlier this afternoon as well who were interested in being able to add their voice in as just as a voice clip. And we have found an add-on. We've not tried it yet because this is like hot off the press. But that would be brilliant for doing spelling tests if you could just put a little video clip up on there instead. So that's, again, these add-ons are really useful. And if you just Google, ironically, Google Forms add-ons, and then what sort of add-on you want, you'll be able to find them. And then talk to your Google admin team to be able to help you get those add-ons added on as such. They're really useful. So yeah, something to think about there, the Google Forms add-ons, and they can again take your quizzes and your forms to another level. But as Amy was saying earlier, please do keep it simple initially and then build it up. Don't feel you have to jump straight in with everything on there.
Amy's just disappeared, bless her. She's trying to get back in, but technology. But we're trying to get her back on.
The wonders of running live. Hopefully we'll get Amy back for a moment. But I think one of the messages we would say really is although it can seem quite deep when we're going through the range of different options that you've got, it is quite simple to get started. And I think you'll very quickly pick up, once you have a few and you've built up a small repertoire, actually, there's no stopping the creation of forms then. I mean, Amy's just moved from strength to strength with it very quickly, hasn't she, Sarah?
Yeah, that's it. And I think you've got to go and try. You've got to go and play with it. Like anything technology, I know teachers don't have time. It's the thing that we lack the most of. But yeah, just spending a few minutes having a little play around, seeing what you can put in, like Amy did. She started off really small and then she's built upon it. And you can be really successful with them.
So hopefully we've answered all your questions. So please let us know just while we're talking about next week, if there's anything you think of you'd like us to answer. To say a big thank you to Amy, because Amy put a lot of those templates together. She had them all with us. She's done an amazing job. So hopefully we'll get her back before the end. But if not, just to say a big thank you. It's great to showcase talent like that and someone who's just grasped something so quickly and does some amazing work. So thank you very much, Amy. Okay, we're going to talk about the Edtech programme now then.
Yeah, so if you need any more help or support from the Edtech Demonstrator Programme, if you haven't signed up previously, then the link is there for the Edtech Demonstrator site at LGFL. The blue box underneath is a new feature of the Edtech Demonstrator Programme. It's cut off a little bit there, so we'll try and get that to you. And that's a coaching part of the Demonstrator Programme. So if you don't want your whole school signed up, but individual teachers or head teachers or SLT, if you want individual help and support, then that little blue box there is for that. Also, if you're on currently and you previously had support from us and you've exited the programme, there is space for you to come back and join us for another set of support. But we would say, Andrew, that we're quite tight on space for that one.
Yeah, I think if you want that, and it's a great option, we'd love to continue working with you. Probably go as quickly as you can. So if you're interested, perhaps in us working with you and developing some of those forms and some of those different templates you've seen today, we can do that with your teaching teams. Sign up, and I would probably do that the next day or so, because there's only now obviously 1 half term left of the project, so it's just 5 weeks. So don't miss out on that if you'd like that opportunity.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, we still have a little bit of space, and if you have worked with us before, we'd love to see you again. Just it's the expression of interest form, just like you did before, back on the Demonstrator website.
And if you're new to us and you haven't worked with us before and you'd like to work with us, then please do sign up and request us in the form. We'd love to meet you. And we'll hand over to Andrew about our next webinar.
Yeah, so next week we've got half term. Enjoy yourselves. Have a good week off. Get some much needed rest, well deserved rest. But then when we come back on Tuesday this time, not Wednesday, Tuesday the 23rd of February, 3:45. We're going to be looking at teacher voice and how you can create engaging content. We're going to be talking to a range of the teachers, 2 teachers on from our school, Elizabeth Woodville, and sharing again a range of examples and how we've brought learning to life. Even though it's through our perhaps a Seesaw platform or through some of the Google sessions that we've been developing. So please join us for that. It's great to have so many of you here. Again, we will stress, just sign up as much as you can. We'd love to work with as many of you as possible. But also thank you very much for your very kind comments. We're going to pass those on to Amy. It's been a real shame we've not been able to get her back on to hit here and see those. We will pass them on. She's been absolutely brilliant. So yeah, thank you once again. Amy, definitely the star of the show there, demonstrating just what you can do with Google Forms. So that's everything from us. We will stay on if anyone's got any specific questions, just for a few moments. Obviously, don't forget to check out our Edtech Demonstrator School website, and the actual website itself has so many brilliant resources. And have yourselves a very good half-term break. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
We'll stay on just for a second in case anyone else has got any questions. I see people leaving now. And we've tried so hard to get Amy back on. We've invited her about 3 times and it just won't work, unfortunately.
Don't worry, we'll pass on all of the kind messages to Amy so she knows.
I'll try once more.
She says she's watching. Even though she can't get back on, she's still watching us, which is lovely. Thank you for watching, everybody.
If you do have any questions, please feel free just to drop them in the chat. And we'll pick them up for you.
Everyone's going off to enjoy their evenings now, which is nice.
I don't blame you.
Very sensible indeed.
I think as no questions are coming through, I think what we'll do is we'll end it there and enjoy your evenings and half term.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.